and jolly good morning to you. This is Newsline, and what a wonderful day it can turn out to be. Our guest this morning is the CEO of the NDB Bank PLC, Mr. Rajendra Tyagaraja. Very good morning to you, Mr. Tyagaraja.
Morning to you, Faraz.
And thank you very much for being on Newsline.
My pleasure.
And Mr. Tyagaraja, you are very much in the news. You are making the news. And that is with the announcement that you are retiring from NDB. What on earth are you going to be doing? Why are you retiring now?
It's been 33 years in the game in banking, and for 12 years I run 2 banks. I think it's always an opportunity when you do that sort of tenure to re-examine what you want to do, what you have been doing, and to see what else is out there to contribute. And having done a fairly operational level roles in the last 12 years leading 2 banks, I think the next phase of opportunity is to get away from more mundane operations and focus more on strategy, and to also look at inclusiveness in a more broader sense from a country perspective.
And does that mean that will you be leaving the banking arena, the world of finance?
Certainly not. I will certainly, I think 33 years of accumulated expertise or experience in financial services, I think could be productively utilized in Sri Lanka. So while I may not be actively involved in an operational level CEO's role, in whatever way I can, I would like to continue to contribute from a strategic point of view to the industry.
So that's good. And it's 33 years in the industry, Mr. Tyagaraja. How do you feel? What is the state of our banking industry?
In Sri Lanka per se, I think the industry has been resilient and stood the test of time, as well as various global and regional challenges throughout, and in particular in the last 3 decades, despite 2 global and regional challenges in terms of crises, this country's system has been resilient. And I think that's because the sector, while not being as sophisticated as some of our regional peers, has also worked very closely with the policymakers and regulators, so that you have had the right balances and the buffers created to manage those crises. But the challenge, I think, and the real opportunity for Sri Lanka is that the world is moving. More and more input of technology and data is coming in. So the opportunity as well as the challenge is to re-examine the business model of the traditional banks.
I have a viewer who sent me a question. Sometimes we ask you controversial questions because we like answers, and so do our viewers, obviously. Anyway, this is you take it the way it is. Are you joining the government or going into politics?
Let me take the latter first. Certainly not politics, because that is it needs a different type of resilience.
Right.
And I think after 33 years in banking and accounting, I don't think I'm cut out for that.
Right.
Government, I don't think so, because again, there is a different career progression for that. But wherever an expertise or input could be contributed on a pro bono basis, perhaps yes.
I see. So not ruling it out completely then?
Not from an active point of view, but wherever for the last so many years, whenever there has been an annual budget, wherever there has been a consultation process from a banking sector point of view, I have been giving my input like many other bankers. So for the industry itself, if there is an opportunity or a requirement for input, it will be constructive input.
Not to put too much of a finer point in it, but you're a banker, and you've 33 years, as you say. How essential would you call a need to have for each of these political parties, especially the bigger ones, to be able to independently fund themselves?
Well, that would be the prerogative of the party itself. I don't belong to any particular political party.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be qualified to comment on that.
Yes. Well, we'll ask you a little question then. Do you get a lot of black money coming through your banks?
See, Sri Lanka.
Control that?
So Sri Lanka has been one of the first signatories to the what they call the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force guidelines, way back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Because of the conflict, and I think the framework was put in embracing some of the best-in-class policies and regulations available in the rest of the world, in Sri Lanka, well ahead of rest of South Asia. So I think the framework has been there, and I think the banking system, has been managing this sort of traffic in that sort of commodity, to my knowledge, fairly well. Right, and of course, no system is immune to leakages. But from time to time, wherever it has happened, they've also not been afraid to, when it's identified, to take the right action to deter it.
And how essential is it to be able to, like there are now limits on ownerships and so on. How essential is that?
So you see, it depends from country to country. If you look at the more advanced economies, in terms of European bank ownerships, there is literally no restrictions. But traditionally, South Asia and perhaps Southeast Asia have always had some sort of cap in ownerships, and I think that has been taken with the view that most of the institutions in this part of the world have been formed with founding families and concentration of ownership with sponsoring families.
Right.
So to balance influences of families with public money, the ownership cap has been put so that there is a balance between concentration of ownership and accountability to the public.
Right. And we'll discuss this a bit more after we go for this short break. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline.
Newsfirst, Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline. We're joined this morning by Mr. Rajendran Tyagaraja, the CEO of NDB Bank. Mr. Tyagaraja, our research department has just come up with this thing. You're leaving NDB and going to remain within the financial industry. But before you, the CEO is now a deputy minister. So it's interesting to see bankers also going into politics. Maybe, do you think it could be a good mix?
I think entering into politics or being in banking are matters of personal choices, individual choices, and I guess these choices take place during a different state of one's career or life, and I'm sure the individual concerned would have taken that decision with a considered decision, weighing the pros and cons at that time. And I think governments themselves from time to time need professionalism. So I think it's not a bad thing for professionals who have the right conviction to be a part of a governmental process rather than being away and criticizing.
How essential is it for a banker to be able to spot a good business that's coming up and to back it?
I think it's absolutely important and imperative, and in that there are two elements to it. One is the books and balance sheet and financial numbers. The other thing is the actual story behind the business proposition and the conviction of a banker in the belief of the sponsors and the entrepreneurs behind the business. And I come from a background which I firmly believe that looking at numbers alone in a market like Sri Lanka doesn't make good business sense. The knowledge, intrinsic knowledge of the entrepreneur behind the business and the ability to back a proposition is equally important.
How possible is it for an up-and-coming businessman, young and so on, with many years ahead, how possible is it for such a person to emulate the likes of Sri Lanka's more successful business people? I don't want to mention names, but they're in the rich list.
It is always possible as long as I'm firm belief that there is no shortcut to success.
Yeah.
Watching and emulating or trying to emulate success stories is important, but also one needs to be able to be mindful of your own intrinsic strengths and limitations and try and tailor-make and doing what makes sense for you rather than just doing a carbon copy of somebody else's.
Right.
But in that process, hard work combined with smartness is equally important, but there is no shortcut. A sustainable business only comes with continuous involvement and focus over time.
I've got another question from a couple more, from two more viewers. But before that, could I ask you, are there opportunities available in this country for entrepreneurs to make it big?
I'm an extremely firm believer that we are. And remember something, we went through a 3-decade-old conflict from the late 70s to 2009. And even during that time, entrepreneurs and institutions have done extremely well. In fact, the bank which I led during that period, during the latter part, during that worst period of 2004 to 2009, which I thought was the most intense area of conflict, did a typical annual average growth of around 30-35% during that 5 years, which demonstrated that where there is agility and smartness, there was opportunity. So now that we don't have that thorn, which is the country risk in terms of a conflict, to me, everything else is an opportunity as opposed to a challenge. Because it's all a relative.
Right. How much of our banking industry is politicized? I have a reason why I'm asking you this, because that's a follow-up question. So I'll let you first answer.
Okay. I think it will be, I think politics, it will be very difficult to try to clinicize the business from politics. But I think the important thing is for businesses to be mindful of the political environment in which they are operating and have the agility but also the conviction to continue the straight path and follow one's principles.
See, the reason I asked you this is, thank God that in 1983, when this group was absolutely reduced to ashes, 6 factories burnt, the business was ruined. And thank God that the banks were not politicized, because they allowed the brothers who owned this group to, at the time, to restart. Didn't they do well? And they were backed by the banks, and of course the banks were they did well because they've been all those their decisions were proved to be sound, because the brothers did what they had to do, and we are here today.
Spot on, and that reinforces my previous observation that in backing a business, it's just not one event or numbers. It is the conviction of the resilience of the promoters. And I think it's not just the business which you particularly mentioned, but during that period, I think a number of banks had successfully backed a number of such entrepreneurs who went through that trauma, and a number of them, those businesses have blossomed with great success over the last 3 decades because of that support and commitment.
That's true. We agree about, and we agree this bit about no shortcuts. But, you know, where we were at the time, the Bank of Ceylon backed us, and our founders decided to move away as that bank became more and more politicized, and other opportunities presented itself. So, you know, there we are.
But can I just add something to that? I mean,
Yeah.
That's obviously a personal choice, but having run 2 privately owned and managed banks,
Yeah.
I've always advocated the belief that Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank have been 2 anchors of national development for years. And many a Sri Lankan entrepreneur has been founded and made by these banks.
Indeed.
So when I compete, I never go and say, get away from that bank and come to me. But the way I position our bank is, whenever you incrementally expand,
Yeah.
give us that opportunity for that extra pie, but always don't forget the person who supported you.
Indeed. We'll come right back because we need to go for a break. Don't go away, and we've got Mr. Rajan Tyagaraja from NDB here with us this morning. Stay tuned.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And welcome back to Newsline, and what a wonderful morning this has turned out to be. Back to this thing about Bank of Ceylon and so on. They were a great bank. They backed us and so on. But the danger was that as they became more politicized, there was this grave danger that the independence of this group would have been bartered and compromised due to the relationship. And so our founders had no choice, really. They had to find other avenues to retain that independence. And we're proud to say that we are independent, and we have been, even though we have been burnt, stoned, Claymore bombed. I keep going on about this Claymore bomb because it's not the kind of thing that you can make up with bits and pieces you buy from the corner shop. And we are here, and we will continue to be here, reporting on behalf of the people in terms of our media. Mr. Tyagaraja, I want to ask you this. Do you think banks in this country are making too much money? That this is a question somebody's...
I don't think so, and let me explain. I think there is a popular myth that banks are making money, but what one does not realize is, for every 1 rupee or 1 rupee 50 cents of profits which a bank delivers, typically it employs more than 100 rupees of assets which it has to accumulate, which is quite exceptional in relation to any other business in terms of the amount of assets one has to amass to deliver that profit. So while in absolute numbers, when these billions get reported, they look disproportionately large. What doesn't probably realize is the amount of capital and assets which get deployed or have to be deployed to generate that amount of money, which is humongous.
Another question. What is your view of the future of banking in Sri Lanka, and what does fintech mean?
So let me take the second first. I think they're referring to fintech. Fintech is a fusion of financial services with technology. And I think that is the buzzword today in around the world. It relates to the new business model, the paradigm, which relates to technology fused with financial services and delivering financial services on tap, on demand, just in time, as opposed to the traditional method. And a lot of it also today is associated with consumer behavior, youth, and the demands of the next generation, who has less patience and who wants to demand things on time. And a very close association with fintech is the availability of data. There is humongous amounts of data around us, and banks have the natural ability by default to be one of the largest repositories of this data. And the excitement is with fintech is to drill that data and then make a transformational change in the life of and the experience of its customers. So I think the opportunity world over and for Sri Lanka is to embrace fintech to meet the needs of this emerging consumer pattern and in that process make money. So there is a huge opportunity for Sri Lanka to embrace that. But I think it also will require some clear and a more in-depth understanding of the regulatory framework to also understand what is happening around the world and amend or adjust its policy framework to support this. Because if that is not there, fintech will perhaps bypass the banking industry.
Mr. Jagaraja, I know that this might be on the borderline, but I really must ask the question. You're a professional banker, 33 years in, and 12 of those running two major banks in our country. Did you sit back and watch the happenings on at the central bank in the last 15 months? And I don't want you to comment on specifics, but you must have looked at it, and were you shocked that we were, do you think that we were exposing too many things? Do you think what we did was detrimental to the industry?
See, there are two factors one has got to weigh. As a CEO and a director of a bank, the role is to focus on the performance of the bank and to work within the ecosystem.
Right.
The role of the regulator is to create policy, shape policy, and do that. And that's a different mindset and a set of expectations as opposed to running a private sector bank. And frankly, I don't think it was my mandate as the CEO to get into that space, because I have enough to focus in catering to the expectations of the general public, the deposit-taking public, as well as the shareholders, rather than detracting my attention. So
can the media be blamed by banks to say that they've, by all these exposés and by reporting on these matters, that their affairs of running their banks and their financial institutions were somehow compromised or sort of disturbed?
See, I have always firmly believed that a media engagement as well as open, regular investor engagement is a very intrinsic attribute for a successful CEO to run a bank. And we have walked the talk for years. For example, every quarter when we come out with our numbers, the very next day, whether it's sunshine or whether it's a cloud, we come out and talk to investors. And we are consistent with our story. So being open, objective, and engaging with the public through electronic as well as print media is an important attribute. And I don't think one should be critical as long as there is a responsible reporting from the media.
And obviously essential that these people don't cheat the public.
Absolutely. Because for a public deposit-taking institution, the overarching first principle beyond anything else is safety and soundness of the institution, after which comes the profitability. Because people have placed their faith and confidence in an institution when they come in to put their deposits.
And do you think that there are enough guarantees, or could these guarantees be strengthened when people come and the public place their money on deposit with the banks?
If you're talking about the deposit insurance, that is always a relatively modest component to the quantum of deposits which are placed. But what is more important is that component to be complemented by the overarching governance principles in which a bank is managed and run, and the way that bank accounts for itself and communicates that performance to the public. I mean, that is as important or more important than any guarantee or insurance, the governance structure of the bank.
Wonderful. Mr. Tyagaraja, you know, as we conclude, and you know, and thank you for being on Newsline, I want to say finally that the Bank of Ceylon, our former bankers, played politics, and we expected that, I suppose, as the time went by, and so we've had to move on, and the Bank of Ceylon has had a key role to play in the case of the central bank so-called bond scandal, and no, we're not going to let it go because there's still a journey ahead. For example, we need accountability and responsibility, and our network will be reporting on those matters in the coming weeks. In the meantime, Mr. Tyagaraja, thank you so much for being on Newsline, and in your retirement away from mainstream running of banks and financial institutions, we wish you very well indeed, and we hope that you will enjoy the semi-retirement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here.
It's been a pleasure as always.
It's been a great pleasure having you on our network. Do come back whenever you feel like it. Thank you for watching Newsline. It's been wonderful having you here. Have a great day ahead. Take care and God bless.